Hello everyone, it is Suki, and now we're going to talk about the healers. Yesterday I did a video covering all three of the ranged DPS. Today we're going to be talking about White Mage. If I sound like I'm a little tired and delirious, it's because I literally stayed up all night leveling Astrologian. And yeah, definitely have some thoughts on that as well as the other two healers. So let's get into it. Oh yeah, I'm not sure how long this video is going to be, but expect it to be another lengthy one. Let me adjust my mic a little bit like that. Alright, so healing in Shadowbringers. Wow. So there's a lot of kind of concern about healing kind of going into Shadowbringers, and I feel like I feel like I was just kind of mixed on that. Like I wasn't overly concerned about it, but at the same time I was kind of seeing why everyone was kind of up in arms about all those changes that we kind of were seeing with healers. A lot of the big ones were basically having our DPS spells kind of getting simplified, so that we only have one filler, one dot, one AoE. Obviously, White Mage has access to a couple other things. You got your size, your Flash's Misery, but for the most part, DPSing as healers has been extremely simplified, and it feels less satisfying to DPS. I definitely would say there's a lot less to kind of keep you busy when it comes to just doing your DPS rotation. When you're doing solo content, it's not very engaging. It's basically just putting up your dot and then using your glares, your broils, your malefics, and then until you need to reapply that dot. And that's basically all it is for DPSing as a healer, which isn't very fun, but it's not what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're supposed to be healing, and I feel like Square Enix is really trying to push for that, because one thing about healers coming into this expansion that was very noticeable right at the start when I started healing right away is that our healing got reduced a lot. And I mean that. If I went back, looked at old footage, looked at the stream I did like literally the night before the maintenance went down for early access patching and all that, and my heals were doing significantly more than what they did at the very start of the expansion in the exact same gear. In fact, getting to this item level, getting to like item level 440, I got Titania's weapon, got some of Innocence's that's really weird to say. I don't even know that's even something you can even say. Got some Innocence accessories. I can't get the choker to drop, and I don't want to spend totems on it. But I'm like, decent enough gear. Like, I'm not like as geared as main healers will be, but I'm fairly geared. But it feels like I'm just barely over where I was at the end of Stormblood in terms of healing, which yeah, that doesn't feel very good. When you kind of take into account the fact that we lost a lot of healing right at the start of the expansion, and the fact that everyone is getting an insane amount of more HP. Like tanks, I think tanks are rocking like 115k, maybe hitting 120k sometimes depending on food. They have a lot of HP, and I've never had my Cure 2 equivalent spells heal so little of an HP bar before. This is like a fifth, maybe even less than an HP bar now if you're healing a tank with Cure 2. And yeah, our healing is absolutely, it's gutted. It's very gutted. And I feel like that's a change that they made purposely to sort of push us to have to needing to heal more. When it comes to AoE spells in particular, like very noticeable on single target, but extremely noticeable as well on AoE. Like before, you'd be able to like maybe just pop an ability down, like throw down an Asylum, throw down an Indom, and throw down an Earthly Star, and you'd be good to go. But sometimes that's not nearly enough with even just AoE damage coming out in leveling dungeons. It's just it's not enough. You're gonna have to do a lot more healing. You're gonna have to actually dip into your GCDs, do some spells, because you're gonna need to heal a lot more, because your heals are doing a lot less, and everyone has a lot more HP. Like, depending on the jobs, everyone has like 25k to, you know, another 40 50k HP depending on the role they are. So yeah, everyone has more HP, we're doing less heals, that means more heals for us. On top of that, we lost a lot of things that kind of interact with increased healing. We don't have largesse anymore. It's still kind of in the game because it's been reworked into some abilities, but for White Mage and Astrologian in particular, those abilities come at the very end of our leveling process. They come at level 80. We get Temperance for White Mage, we get Neutral Sect for Astrologian. So we don't get those until the very end, after we've kind of leveled, which we really could have used those tools in those leveling dungeons. Trust me, it would have helped a lot. But yeah. Scholars, you kind of get yours. When do you get yours on Scholar? It's Dissipation, so you kind of lose your fairy there, but you get yours at level 60. So I actually leveled Scholar first, and it wasn't that bad. But leveling Astrologian, let me tell you, that was a nightmare. But yeah, no largesse. Convalescence is also gone. You know, I mean, you still got some things that interact with your healing. You know, I think warriors get a trait at level 78 that makes Thrill Bell get that convalescence effect back, so it's kind of like a mini Defiance back in the day. The Bards has Nature's Min, which is an amazing ability that I see very little Bards actually using. Mantra is also, it's Nature's Min, but for the whole party, but I don't see any mucks anywhere, so obviously they can't be using it to help me out when I'm healing. But yeah, healing across the board is just reduced, so that's something to keep in mind if you haven't actually tried healing yet, is that your healing is going to be significantly less, or noticeably less than what it was at the end of Stormblood, and you're gonna have to be putting out a lot more heals. Your heals aren't going to be as effective, everyone's going to have more HP. It's going to be a very interesting time for you if you haven't leveled your healers yet. But yeah, just kind of have to get that out of the way. So healing, or healers, DPS capabilities, gutted a bit. Healing potencies, healing strength, gutted a little bit. So that all kind of culminates into Square Enix wants us to heal more, which, you know, fair enough. I don't want to heal any of the leveling dungeons ever again, because those were horrible experiences. I don't want to do it. Tanks just, they don't use their cooldowns properly. A lot of tanks in the Duty Finder don't use their cooldowns properly. They're holding on to their cooldowns for some reason. I don't know what the hell they're saving their sentinels or their hallowed grounds for. Just like, I don't know. Tip, if you're leveling your tanks, by the way, healers, we want your cooldowns. We want your tank cooldowns on your large pulls, alright? We don't give a shit about dungeon boss damage. You don't need your cooldowns there. All you need for dungeon boss damage is your short-term cooldowns. You know, your Sheltrons, your Heart of Stones, your Raw Intuitions. That's all we need for dungeon bosses. But we need your actual cooldowns on large pulls. So if you're leveling a tank, just keep that in mind. That's where healers want your defensive cooldowns when it comes to dungeons. Obviously, it's different when you're doing, like, you know, primal fights, raid fights and all that. It's a different thing, but in dungeons we want it during the large pulls, not during the dungeon bosses. So don't save your cooldowns for dungeon bosses. Dungeon boss damage, it's easy, all right? We want it during the large pulls, please. So keep that in mind if you're leveling a tank. So all right, so healing is interesting. I don't know how I feel about healing just yet. I need to kind of heal a lot more. I've had limited experience with Astrologian. As I said, I kind of just leveled it just now. I wanted to level it before they made any job adjustments, so I can kind of see how it felt before they adjusted anything. Spoiler alert, it felt terrible. I hated it. But White Mage and Scholar were fine, you know. But I will get into specifics, but in terms of healing, I'm not having as much fun healing dungeons, at least on healers. I mean, dungeons have never been that fun on healers, to be honest, but I've always had way more fun healing just like primal fights and stuff like that, because that's where I feel like healing is the most fun, is in those raid fights and in those primal fights. That's when healing is the most fun. So really looking forward to doing more healing in those types of things, and not just dungeons, which is not that fun on healers, I will say that. So yeah, I guess it's time to kind of get into the specifics. So we're going to start off with White Mage, because I feel like White Mage is kind of easy to kind of talk about, because I think White Mage is actually in the best spot out of the three healers right now. I feel like you don't need to change anything about White Mage. They're going to change some stuff about White Mage, almost certainly, but I really don't think you need to. Now, some people are going to say White Mage is a little too powerful. They're going to point to two things. They're probably going to point to Glare being as strong as it is, and it's like they need Glare to be as strong as it is. You know why? Because we don't bring anything. We don't bring anything else. What White Mage has is just raw power, raw healing power, raw DPS, raw personal DPS power. That's what they bring. So they need to have that feeling of being powerful. I think it nails it. I really do. People are gonna point to a size. I feel like if there's a size is almost certainly going to get adjusted. I feel like there's too many people complaining that it's too powerful. I personally don't think it is. I think it's completely fine and fits with what White Mage is supposed to be, which is powerful. Personal, high healing, high DPS power. That is what White Mage brings to the table. When you bring a White Mage, that's what they're bringing. When you bring a Scholar, they bring a nice balance of healing, nice balance of damage mitigation. They also got that crit buff. And then when you bring Ashalosians, obviously they're bringing some extra rate DPS. But when you bring a White Mage, you're bringing them for their extremely diversive healing toolkit, as well as there's just raw healing power and high personal DPS. That's what you're bringing your White Mage for. So I think a size fits that perfectly. I don't think you really need to change it, but I highly suspect with the amount of people kind of complaining about a size being a little too powerful, or not really complaining. No one's going to complain that something's too powerful, but saying that it's too powerful, it's almost certainly going to get adjusted. And I feel like the easiest adjustment that they'll probably make is they'll probably bump up the recast time to 60 seconds like it was before in the past. I don't even remember when they reduced it down to 45 seconds, and I remember thinking at the time they didn't need to do that, but I've been really loving that 45-second recast, and I'm going to miss it because I feel like that's almost certainly going to be the change they make to a size. If not that, then they'll probably just adjust the potency of the damage it deals, which, fine, whatever. Looking at everything else on White Mage, regen is fine. It used to be 21 seconds, but it does a lot more healing over its duration of 18 seconds than it did over that 21 seconds. That 200 per tick over the 150 per tick really does help a lot for White Mage, and it's only 500 MP, which when we go over to Ashalosian and you look at Diurnal Aspected Benefic, it's like 1000 MP, which is insane. That's definitely something I'm looking forward to changing. But just looking at White Mage in general, it's good. There's really not much I really want changed. There's a couple of weird changes to kind of talk about. Asylum getting the increased healing via healing actions, by 10%. It's nice. The problem is that it's not like if you're standing in it, you're giving more. It's not outputting. Basically, it's inputting. So everyone has to actually be standing in Asylum for them to get the enhanced healing actions, or increased healing actions. I mean, rather than if you're standing in it, you're outputting more potency on your healing actions. So getting people to stay standing in Asylum can be a bit of a pain sometimes, because people don't want to stand and stuff for some reason. I don't know, they'll see a big pit on the ground that does healing, like I'll throw down Earthly Star, I'll throw down Sacred Soil, Asylums, and there'll be just like a DPS over in the corner that just doesn't want to move in range. Just no reason. Like it's not even like it's a black mage that just wants to stand still, which I could understand. It's like it's a red mage, or it's a bard, or it's a dancer, and they don't want to move into it for no reason. Like there's nothing there, there's nothing that's gonna hit them. They don't want to move into it. So it's just like, you know what, fine. So it's getting people to cooperate and actually stand and stuff is kind of a pain. When it comes to like Titania or just raids in general, people are generally a lot more coordinated and more willing to kind of stand in one spot. So thankfully, where it really matters a lot, it definitely helps. But Asylum, I do think that it'd be a little nice if we increase the radius of Asylum to 8 yalms to kind of match Sacred Soil and Earthly Star, but 6 yalms, I guess it's fine. I also think that while the increased healing actions is nice to have, it's not as good as having just damage mitigation. and a regen, like with Sacred Soil. Sacred Soil is insane, by the way. Like, we all talking about how Asai's is powerful. Sacred Soil is, in my opinion, ridiculous. So yeah, that's the thing that I'm saying. That's powerful. I'd be, I feel like Sacred Soul is kind of going under the radar because of, but it really is that thing is, it's strong. It's really good. Sacred Soul is really good. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead to Scholar right now, but it's really good. Plenary Indulgence, I actually didn't think this needed to be changed. It's kind of a weird change. Before, Plenary Indulgence would always just kind of be a passive thing you could always get. You could always get your confession stacks, no matter what, and it happened whenever you actually did healing via your healing spells. So people have to actually be missing HP in order for you to grant them confession stacks, but it'd always be something that would kind of happen in the background, and depending on how many confession stacks people had when you press Plenary Indulgence, kind of depended on the amount of healing they got when you pressed it. Now it kind of acts as a healing, AoE healing cooldown. You put this up, people who have the confession will get an additional 200 potency ability cure whenever you use an AoE spell, and that thankfully includes a Flash's Rapture now. Back in the media tour, a Flash's Rapture was not affected by Planetary Indulgence, and thankfully, going into early access, they did make that change. A Flash's Rapture thankfully does actually get you that extra 200 potency when using Planetary Indulgence, which thank goodness, by the way, thank goodness. Dia, Glare, I mean, they look pretty. They do more damage. There's really nothing else to say there. People are saying that White Mage is doing too much damage. They're not. They're doing as much damage as they should be doing, in my opinion. It's fine. Don't worry. White Mage, don't nerf White Mage DPS. Just don't do it. Just don't touch it. Don't touch White Mage DPS. I know you probably want to touch other things. Just don't touch White Mage DPS. A Flash's Misery is fine as well. I was kind of worried that a Flash's Misery would be kind of one of those things where it feels like you're forced to use your spells in order to get to a Flash's Misery, which you kind of are. You know, I guess we should talk about the Lily system and how that's working out. In my opinion, it kind of just works as a worse Aether Flow. That's really my take on it. It's basically just a worse Aether Flow. It's an Aether Flow that gradually has to build up while you're in battle, and you get one every 30 seconds rather than getting 3 every 60 seconds, and you can only use it on spells rather than abilities like you can with Aether Flow, and it's fine. It is what it is. It's fine. I think you get a Flash's Rapture way too late, honestly. I'd really love to have had this much earlier in the leveling process. You get it way too late. I really think you should have gotten this close to the start of the expansion, if not just retroactively put like at level 70 or something, because we really could have used this throughout a lot of the leveling process for White Mage. I feel I think you really get a Flash's Rapture a little late, and even when you do get it, it's not even that great. It's just the 300 potency a heal, which again isn't a whole lot when you kind of factor in how little healing we're kind of doing now. It's not a lot. Like, this isn't going to be like it's very rare that you'll be able to just pop a Flash's Rapture on its own and just not have it be enough to kind of deal with the damage that's going out. Yeah, you're going to need to pair it with something else, whether that be your Planetary Indulgence, your Size, your Asylum, or, you know, Medica 2, something. You're going to need something else almost certainly all the time when you're casting this, so it's not even that strong. Like, you look at Indomitability, I mean, it's an ability, but it's doing like 500. So I wouldn't mind if a Flash's Rapture and even Medica 1 at that rate get a little bit of buff, but at the same time, I don't think they really need